Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Pga Dfs First Look Show for the Bermuda Championship. It's going to be a fun one. I say that with maybe a little bit of sarcasm, Jeff, this week as we are heading for another one of these seaside challenges, I'll call them. And the problem with them is, Jeff, is we don't have Shot Tracker. We don't have our normal technology that us gamers and degens are all used to and loving. So it maybe gets the heart racing a little bit when you see player one shot from the tee for about 20 minutes, right? It definitely provides a different element this week.
Yeah, it's one of those, off-site or off-mainland events. They just don't get the technology out there or whatever, for whatever reason. I don't really know, but PGA hasn't invested into it yet, so we go a little bit blind if you're going online. And obviously a lot weaker field with not many top players wanting to travel at this point, with Augusta so close. So a couple different things going on. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. We had one of these similar events in Corrales. It's still pretty fun to watch, and quite frankly, it's still pretty fun to play. And with Augusta coming up in a couple weeks, guys to keep your eye on still. So. Yeah,
for sure. And hey, listen, there's still $100,000 to first place for the $10, $100,000 to first place for the $800. So it's not like we're getting that much of a dip in action in terms of a regular PGA Tour week. So you definitely got to love all of that. So we've got a lot to talk about as well from last week. We're going to do a little bit of an Augusta preview, especially because a lot of the guys that played last week we won't see again until Augusta in a couple of weeks. So let's start it off with one of our guys and a guy that, of course, I love. I am El Presidente of the fan club of Patrick Cantlay, unofficially, of course. And he finally closes. He struggled at the Shriners to close it out there. He should have won it. Now here, he just comes in and it was a total display of his game. I mean, he didn't rely on his putting. He gained about a stroke around, which is good for the winner. Gained everywhere, though, and that's the upside that I love about Patrick Cantlay.
Yeah, that was kind of what turned me on to him, pre-event as well. I wasn't someone I was, really high on right off the bat. He didn't stuck out, but you look at what he was doing, and he played quite a bit, from when he came back from that, he got a deviated septum or something. So he took a little bit longer break after the COVID, but you saw him come back. His numbers weren't jumping off the page in terms of results, but you could just see him getting a little bit sharper. It kind of felt like every week. And the off the tee game was really solid the last couple times out. That's what kind of really convinced me that he something good might be coming. So, and you looked at those odds last week. That was where I made most of my cash off the Cantlay outright. He was going off at 17, 18 to 1 at a lot of spots.
Yep.
Again, in the summer. Now you got him here at a pretty limited, it wasn't that great a field event at 2,800 or better. And I saw a lot of spots. So that was tempting. And, from the DraftKings perspective too, it was a good value. I mean, at 9,400 really. So yeah, I agree. It was nice
sub 10% ownership as well. It obviously, you found your way to him, which, I was able to, you were able to as well. We'll get into it, of course, in our DFS review. You mentioned, though, that he was kind of simmering, right? At the CJ Cup, he just lost strokes putting. One of the knocks about Patrick Cantlay when he first came back is that he didn't have an elite around the green game. Then he struggled with his chipping, his putting, especially his bunker play. But now, I mean, he's a pretty elite around the green player. I mean, the last time they lost with the PGA, and it's only marginally, and he hasn't lost over a quarter of a stroke in since the Safeway of last year. So we're talking well over a year. Really transformed his game, and I think that's why we're going to see him again compete in 2 weeks at Augusta, because he's got that part of his game now, which he didn't have before.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if he's sharp coming in, I mean, this is the perfect lead up for him. I mean, like I said, he's played a lot. Now he's got the win under his belt, and that's something that stuck out to me when I was looking at him too. I mean, the around the green with him and the putting has been way more consistent of late. So it's just it just adds to the intrigue of Augusta, man. I mean, I don't think Cantlay was on many people's radars coming in, but he certainly is now. So, yeah, I mean, and remember, it was 2 years ago, or it was last year that he shot he shoot 63 there in round 3 or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, he made a run in round 4. He had the lead by himself at one point after he walked off of 15. He had the lead. Then threw it in the water on 16. The guys that everybody was making basically a hole-in-one on hit a terrible, terrible shot that obviously cost him a chance to win and gave the tournament to his captain there, Tiger Woods. So I don't know that that'll be happening this week, but we'll certainly get into that a little bit. But before we do, I want to tell you about an awesome promo code we got going on, and it is Halloween week. a little bit of a fan. I enjoy getting all dressed up and all that fun stuff. And we've got an awesome promo code going on. It's Get an Awesemo Plus Platinum Weekly Pass for just $10.31 when you use promo code Pumpkin at checkout. Listen, that's nearly $20 off the original price. And this package includes full access to Awesemo Plus weekly tools, including player projections, ownership projections, and our premium Slack channel for all of our sports, not just PGA. And that is including lineup builder and much more. This offer is valid through Halloween 10/31. And listen, if you haven't joined yet, this might be the best time to do so. We just had an amazing night last night for our subscribers. Neil Orfield, an Awesemo Plus member, he took down the $1 million on DraftKings. We had another sub take down second place in that. Awesemo was all over the board, Jeff. I mean, what a performance. What better time to join, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, you're talking to someone who's worked for a site for a bit now. You know, I see the projections that come out every week. I mean, it's just strong stuff that you're getting to work with. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. I mean, you're getting strong stuff from Alex every week, and it's really, really, it's a pleasure to work with and a pleasure to use probably for our users, as you can probably see by some of the results. So definitely a good time. Any time is a good time, but, with football and good swing and the Masters coming up, as I spit on my microphone. It's a great time.
That's the best of us. We're excited about Augusta coming up, and that's actually a perfect leadway, Jeff, into the next section that I want to talk about for a second. It's Rahm and JT. Are they Augusta ready? And in my opinion, everything that I see in the game looks like they are. Maybe Jon Rahm's struggling a little bit with his short game. That's what cost him, in my opinion, the tournament this week. He had a 14-footer on 18 to get into a playoff with Cantlay. Didn't do it. So who's more ready of those two? And would you be betting Rory McIlroy at lower odds than these guys? Because that's what it looks like right now.
Yeah, man. This is coming into Augusta right now. It feels strange. Like I feel like probably you want to give a slight edge to Justin Thomas. I just like the way he's going with his scoring clubs and his irons. I don't think he gets discounted as much off the tee at Augusta. There's a lot of room off the tee. I just like the way he's trending with those clubs. You saw the putter starting to heat up a bit. Doesn't have the greatest record at Augusta, I guess, just considering the top players. Most of the guys there kind of been in contention. Never really seen JT in contention at Augusta. So maybe that's a big enough knock for me not to back him. I don't really have much bad to say about Rahm. I mean, I think he can clean that up. But, Rory at bigger odds, I might just lean there. I mean, I know Rory is just like, he just seems like he's just one round away. He just doesn't seem that far away to me. I know it almost feels like Patrick Cantlay going into last week, where he seemed further away than he actually was to putting in like a big week. And that maybe is why some people didn't gravitate towards him for GBPs and DraftKings. It kind of feels like that with Rory, where he's just not that far away. So I think right now I would go with the bigger odds with like DJ or Rory than Justin or Jon Rahm at Augusta. But it's tight betting those guys at the top right now.
No, it sure is. And Rory, finally, he had actually really been struggling with his approaches coming into last week, and finally looked like he bucked that trend after the first round. He ended up gaining just shy of 2 strokes on the week, so a little shy of a half a stroke per round. But for him, it's trending in the right direction, because it wasn't before that in round one.
He was real trouble with his irons before that. Yeah.
So good to see that. Now going into Augusta, should give him some pretty good credit. Now, of course, the wild card in that is going to be Bryson DeChambeau, who is the odds favorite right now at 8-1. I mean, can these guys compete with Bryson if Bryson's at his best putting and driving it the way that he does? Do you think at this point they can compete?
I mean, I think they can. I think they can compete. I think guys like Thomas and maybe Rahm especially can compete with Bryson at Augusta. Like, I don't think.
So let me ask you a different way. Is Augusta different than Winged Foot, where Bryson won't be able to dominate the field as much? Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I don't think Bryson will necessarily can dominate the field as much, because I feel like Augusta will open it up more to a player like Rahm or JT, who just gets hot with their scoring clubs. Even if it's not for like all 4 rounds, it's going to at least keep Bryson like in sight, most likely. I mean, look, he could just come here, Bryson, I'm talking about, and just dominate it, I guess. But for Dustin, Rory, Justin, Rahm, you even throw Schauffele in there, I still would think one of those guys would be playing well enough to at least keep him in sight at Augusta, because I don't think, he's going to have an advantage off the tee, but I don't think it's going to be as pronounced maybe as Winged Foot, where, with the higher rough and stuff like that, it was just such a big advantage. And with his approaches clicking in too, I feel like the other players will at least be able to keep him close to the point where, we'll get at least like a showdown, even if Bryson is playing at the top of his game. So that's kind of my feelings on it. I still really like the way this sets up for Bryson, but I think at the same time, if he's going to win, one of these top players will at least push him this week. That's kind of my feelings on it. The other thing about Bryson is, I guess, do you know if he's playing in Houston next week?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think Bryson. Yeah. I think he already said he's not playing until Augusta.
Seems strange. Seems a little strange to go like what? Was he going to be like 4 or 5 weeks? No play going into.
Plus he's trying to do something different, of course, and we saw that it didn't click right away. Right when we first came back, he of course had debuted this new transformation. Yeah. And had a lot of top 10s, a lot of top 5s. He didn't get the win until the Rocket Mortgage. Again, don't get me wrong. I think this guy is of course ready to play. I do tend to agree with you that he can't pull away from the course. The only way we've ever seen somebody pull away at the Masters, the last time I can remember it, and yes, I'm bringing it up, but it's the time that Spieth set the scoring record, or at least tied the scoring record. He made every single putt he looked at this week, or that week, I should say. So I think Bryson would have to do that, even if he's getting a pitch shot into every hole. So he's got 40 yards into every hole.
He is capable of that. He is capable.
He's capable. Now his 40-yard game has to be decent, and he still has to putt.
Yeah.
So, and we know the around the green complexes at Augusta are not going to be what he's, what he even saw at Winged Foot. They're going to be even harder. So I do think it brings in there. A couple more things. Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson really searching going into Augusta. Are they even on your radar? Let's say for DFS purposes, what price would they have to be on your radar at the Masters?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we it's a major. We'll probably get fairly soft pricing. I think Phil would have to be like I don't want to say sub 7 because the pricing, because the Masters field is it's pretty thin. But maybe he might get him at sub 7, and that's probably where you would start to think about Phil.
They're not going to do Tiger down below 8,000 even. Like he's going to be priced up.
That's exactly what I was just thinking with Tiger. Like, I don't think you're going to get a super, super cheap Tiger anyways. So it'll probably be a case where, if he's like maybe like low 8s, he'll still garner a little bit of ownership. But I think if he's like high 8s, he might even get into that range where he ends up being like a good 4 or 5% owned play. Because I think most people will be looking at it as, I know you'll get the Tiger guys out there. Like, I got to get a piece of Tiger at Augusta, but he could end up as like a really good pivot play for the week, just from an ownership perspective. It's still not someone I'm like going to be super thrilled about to play, but it is Tiger at Augusta and it is DFS. We're not necessarily betting him to win. We just need him to pay off the salary, right? So
exactly.
It'll be interesting. Tiger's salary will be way more interesting than Phil's. Phil is just like, if he's really cheap, maybe like a flyer or something, but Tiger will be a little bit more interesting to see, I think.
For sure. Well, it's a perfect leadway actually into paying off your salary, as we're going to go into our DFS review of last week. And we're going to start off with a little bit of a point distribution and ownership talk. Patrick Cantlay, of course, he led the field, 143 DraftKings points. Wow. I mean, 143 points. Been a while since we've seen that type of score. Justin Thomas, 133. Ryan Palmer, 131. John Rahm, 130. Munoz and Watson, 165. Russ Henley there again, and man, that must keep you excited, Jeff, to see Russ Henley continuing to perform. Cam Smith also at 116. Tony Finau, good to see him bounce right back from COVID, 111. Also, maybe a little bit of trend with Finau and Jack Nicklaus courses. A couple of good starts in a row for him at those. Roy McIlroy, even though he had a terrible first round, 110 on the DraftKings point, so he's still, I think he might have even been in the top 2 or 3 in birdies for the week. Corey Connors, 109. And Xander Schauffele also could not avoid the big numbers, but put up 108 DraftKings points. So plenty going on there. Switching to ownership, the field was not getting off of Justin Thomas, who came in second. Webb Simpson, he was 22% owned, 18th. Colin Morikawa was pretty much the big chalk miss of last week. He was 20% owned and came 51st. John Rahm, 19% fourth. Reed, 17-17. Fitzpatrick, 17-25. Really not much misses from the chalk. I mean, Neiman and Answer are kind of the guys that people have been gravitating to in that low 8K, high 7K range. Maybe those guys failed to do anything this week, Jeff. But for the most part, the chalk hit. But what we had Patrick Cantlay low owned the winner, who was also priced pretty high. So we had a good element last week where if you matched up the good chalk with Cantlay, you had a good week.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly it. You needed to match up the good chalk. I mean, we did have guys like Fitzpatrick. You mentioned Answer. They dipped a little bit. Fitzpatrick started off so hot. I thought he was going to end up really paying off there on Sunday. He had a terrible Sunday. Morikawa was definitely the bust of the week, just from like a terrible scoring perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he played that badly, but he obviously didn't really pay off the 20% ownership or anything like that. So, and he's a guy who said, like, when he gets out of contention, he has trouble concentrating. So maybe we should have expected that once he kind of got out, he was going to fade. But yeah, Munoz was great chalk too. And so many of these guys just moved up on the weekend, man. Like Xander was like in last.
One of the last place, yep.
And then just shot up the leaderboard. And Rory was the same way. So really crazy kind of week, huge swings. I mean, I know I had a Cantlay lineup that we'll look at in a sec that it wasn't even cashing before Sunday and then just vaulted up. I mean, it was actually getting pretty close. I needed a couple more guys to come through like Fitzpatrick, but yeah, it was a fairly chalky week. But like you said, you definitely needed to be on like the right low ownership plays. Cantlay obviously being the first.
Yeah, let's check it out and see how some of our pros did. And we'll start off with Alex Awesemo Baker, our own, and he could not. I'm sorry. Apologize. As my guy behind the glass told me, Jordan, I skipping out on the top GPP lineup before we go into Alex's thing.
Let's look at that.
Yeah, I always like to look at the top GPP, see how close I was or see how close the projections were. And I'll tell you, the actually only thing that the projections missed for me last week, if you had done the Rahm and Cantlay and used the projections, if you would lock those two in, which of course not necessarily going to happen, but it had Henley, Munoz, and Palmer. The only miss was Lanto Griffin. I faded him because I thought the ownership was going to be high, Jeff. It ended up coming in mildly at 10%. I thought it was going to be closer to 20. He ended up getting 107 points. So it was a GPP win, though, however, a mass multi-answer win. Brown Dog, 19, put in 150 lineups. Total ownership of 80% for the winning lineup, 49.7 for the salary. So he left some there. 744 was the score. Happy to see Russ Henley in that lineup, I'm sure, Jeff, and no surprise with Munoz and Palmer. Pretty good line. Nobody priced under 7,000 for that line.
Yeah, no, I mean, the only guy I was obviously like that kind of came out, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but the only guy I was really off of this was Lanto Griffin for sure. It's kind of similar as you. Munoz was heavily considered. I ended up going Smith over him, but it was really close between those two. Liked them both. Henley, I thought was like I was surprised he even got up to that much ownership just because his price had gone up so much, but he's just playing so well. Cantlay, obviously the key. And then Palmer, I didn't use Palmer, but I definitely understood the play. And I kind of, liked him in that range. I ended up going with Paul Casey because he's Paul Casey and it was more of just a long-term thing. But, Palmer, again, we really saw the recent form play out. Like those plays, like we talked about this, like Kuchar, Fowler, Casey, they're all cheap, but like none of them really shot up and like paid off. It was none of them did. Like you had to go with like Munoz and Palmer, and the guys have been playing well. So again, I've probably said this on every fall show, but like the fall series just seems like such a momentum time of the year that I just think you ride the recent form a lot here. So.
Yeah, speaking of recent form, I want to go back to Patrick Cantlay for 1 second before we go into our pro review. My parents and my mother, she loves watching golf, and she's been a golf fan for a while. And she noticed that Patrick Cantlay was chewing gum yesterday. She said she hated it.
I'm mad now.
Yeah, she said she absolutely hated it. She couldn't stand it. Thought it was wicked annoying. I'm going to bring up two questions for you. One, I noticed that he was less fidgety, however, with his feet and with his hands. So I think maybe it's taking some of that nervous energy away. One, do you agree with that? And two, do you care?
I mean, I don't care about watching. I thought it was interesting. I chew gum a lot too, so I'm the same way. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should chew gum while I play golf. Right? Like I'm probably going to try that next time. But I think you're right. I think it might have helped him a bit. It does seem like something maybe he did like consciously because he is a bit of a fidgeter, right, around the ball. So it could be something. I want to see if he does it like going forward now. I mean, it obviously didn't hurt him. So
yeah, exactly. Me too. And he also changed his putting stroke. He found something he was coming more inside. Good to mention that.
Right.
They have those 2 notes before you. Okay, now let's go in and see if any of our pros found their way to Patrick Cantlay this week, or last week, I should say. And Alex, he went back to Justin Rose. And while Rose may have kind of failed a little bit on the positional side, still 70% owned for Alex. So kind of taking that trend in these no-cut events of getting a little more aggressive. Rose did cut over 100 points, so actually really didn't do bad for his salary. I think it was 7,500. Obviously not a GPP winner in Rose. You had to find Munoz or Palmer, but still he probably helped him out at least get some good cashing. Justin Thomas, 36, Rory, 30, Kisner, 29. No surprise to see Kisner there. The projections were really high on him, and he had a decent week. It was the Kuchar and Casey that he really struggled with. Put Paul Casey in there twice. Maybe I just thought about wanting to talk to him. Matt Fitzpatrick, 21, a miss on Morikawa, 19, a little bit of a miss on Webb was 17, and then only having 6% Patrick Cantlay. Maybe that cost him a little bit, Jeff, and I'll go run through mine really quickly first so you can kind of talk about them both. I had Answer, 54%. I found my way to Palmer Munoz, so that certainly helped my results. My GPP results were really good. Spieth, 41%, almost 100 points, so pretty good payoff there. Sungjae Im was a big miss for me, though. 25, Fitzpatrick and Champ, pretty good there. And I also could not avoid Morikawa or Hovland. And I decided to play Rory over Rahm and Thomas for the most part, or not most part, I should say, a little bit more ownership there. And I did find myself double the field on Patrick Cantlay, so that certainly helped my results. Surprised to see Justin Rose at 70% for Alex, or do you think it's a real long-term thing that he's chasing here a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit surprised to see him that high, but obviously felt pretty comfortable with it. And again, one of those long-term things, I don't mind taking a shot with it. Like I said, it's not really worked out. Rose was literally the only player like that worked out last week, but I think he's obviously been projecting like that for Alex for a while to do this. So this isn't just like a one thing, I think, where it just popped up. He's talked about it a bit. So kind of makes sense that he went overweight here. He's really cheap. You just unlocked a lot with like using guys like that, obviously. He mixed in a little bit of Casey, probably is a bit of a hedge, but I'm pretty sure Rose was projecting better for him. So I wasn't shocked to see him do that. I like his ownership on the top players for sure. It obviously did hurt him a bit, though, because it didn't get, I don't think he got exposure to like Munoz or Cam Smith, really, because he went so heavy on Justin Rose. So it did kind of limit him. But, putting all your eggs in one value basket, I'm fine with that if you're really comfortable with the value play. I mean, I've definitely done that before, too, where I just this guy just screams out. I mean, so I think he just took a shot with him like that week. It's kind of similar, I guess, what you did with Answer, just on a bit of a lesser scale. But again, the difference was you got exposure to like Munoz and Palmer there. So obviously really good calls on your part. And like I said, I really like the Munoz and Smith plays down there. So it made a ton of sense. And yeah, it was one of those weeks. Like I saw the ownership levels on Cantlay again, just being low, but even just surprised that like you said, you went 18% on Cantlay. Double the field, didn't have to do much there. Always something to take note of when you're making or you're MMEing or whatever. If you got a guy like Cantlay projecting for that low, man, you just don't need to race too many lineups to get double the field. And it helped you this week. Obviously, you didn't even it wasn't even in your top 10 exposures, and massive play for you there. So
yeah, and just a quick recap. Alex used 53 players. I used 48 in mine. His top lineup for $10 was 348th. I didn't put 150 in the $10. It was a little bit too rich for my taste. But the contest that I played in came in 45th. It actually was, I did make the top Jordan Spieth line, and it did come in 45th. So as you can see, Spieth actually did help pay off there. 45th out of, a 30,000 person contest is certainly pretty close to the top 1%. So obviously, if that was a switch to Cam Champ there, it was very, very close to the top. But that's, of course, why you.
I also fell. We talked about Champ. It's funny because I had Spieth and Champ all targeted, and I had this one other lineup where I played Ann over him. Ann actually had a decent scoring week.
And had over 100 points as well.
Champ would have been.
Yeah, in fact, he actually was in one of the GPP lines, not the top one, but he was he was pretty darn close up there. All right, let's take a look at Brick 75, take a look at how he did it. He went much more conservative. He started off with Rory at the top, 28%. Then he went to JT at 23. Matt Kuchar, a popular name, certainly with the projections last week. He was 23. Matt Fitzpatrick also the same. John Rahm, Paul Casey. Again, the second time we've seen that name pop up. Billy Horschel, Abe Answer, Ricky Fowler, Pat Reed, Scotty Scheffler. And he got double the field on Patrick Cantlay, which I think helped him obtain the 149th that he got in the $10. Now, we'll see how Brown Dog 19 did it. And I can promise you, Jeff, this is not me. I don't have a pseudonym or like another screen name I'm using. But Brown Dog's top exposure was 50% to Jordan Spieth. So whether he's a fan of mine and loves listening to me talk about Spieth, or if he's just a fan of Jordan Spieth, found that to be really interesting that he ended up with the winning lineup going Jordan Spieth there up at the top. But as you can see, he had 41% Cantlay, 34% Henley, 32% Griffin, 31% Palmer, and 31% Munoz. Jeff, that's going to get it done. He only used 22 players as well. So in a no-cut, this was a go-for-broke strategy, and it paid off.
Do you know how many lineups he had?
He had 150.
Oh, so wow. Holy cow. Okay. Yep. I was thinking he had like 20 or something. I would have understood it with like 20 because it's a smaller investment. But yeah, that's pretty ballsy. It looks like he didn't even have any JT either.
Nope.
Really ballsy to go that much and not get any exposure to JT. That's like a disaster waiting to happen.
Sure is.
If he had a hot Sunday, that would have been a way different story.
Yeah, imagine that is an easy six-figure swing if JT wins this golf tournament.
Yeah. At the same time, again, I mentioned like you get lower on players. I mean, he went so far over on Cantlay, obviously really playing for a Cantlay win, but Cantlay's a top player, man. I mean, it's not like we're talking about like 100-to-1 guy winning here. I mean, again, especially with these limited field events, you get that much exposure to a lower owned guy winning. It is huge. So obviously saw a payoff here. Yeah, the 50% Spieth, probably a little bit too rich, especially with guys like Champ and Benny Ann down on there in the same range. I would have rather spread it, but yeah, look, who cares? It worked out.
Sure did. It sure did. All right, let's go into a couple of our lineup reviews. I had my first top 5 in a GPP in quite some time, so we'll break down that lineup. The first lineup was, I'll call it my top lineup of the week, and you're going to see between these two teams that I covered what would be considered probably the optimal lineup with the guys that I did, but I couldn't pair them together, so not a huge payout. My Rahm build, again, my miss was Morikawa. I don't even think Sungjae was that big of a miss. He scored 80 points at 8K. He could have helped win one of these smaller events, but it was really Morikawa, 9,800 going to him over Cantlay in this specific lineup. Found my way to Munoz, Palmer, and Spieth. I love those three together. I mean, they put up well over 300 points. I'll take that. I'll sign for that each and every week, Jeff, if I could. And we'll run quickly through my $100 one, which was the top 5 lineup. That one had Justin Thomas and Patrick Cantlay, along with Cam Smith and Cam Camp. So I paired up the Camerons together. What I should have done, which probably cost me the win, was I decided to go Patrick Reed and go real heavy and dip all the way down to Richie Werenski at 6,300. If I had split those two, even going like Matt Fitzpatrick and one other guy in that range, like Scotty Scheffler, yeah, it would have been the winning lineup. But still, this is how I kind of built it out.
And
I covered all the top guys. I got one.
Yeah, it's such a crazy week too. After that 61, man. I mean, you figure you put one more decent round, hey? Like, geez.
Yeah, everything else was terrible. 4 over in round 4 even. Yeah, that was really the downfall there. And now going to yours, you kind of found your way into a very similar build. You found your way to a low-owned Cantlay, but you went a little bit more conservative. You threw up Bubba Watson, Harris English, and Matt Fitzpatrick, Paul Casey, Cam Smith. So really, if you would just, like you said, gone from Paul Casey down to Ryan Palmer or Sebastian Munoz, this is a top 1% lineup.
Yeah, pretty much. Casey definitely killed me this week. The Harris English chalk, I mean, it wasn't terrible, him and Fitzpatrick, but really needed a little bit more. It's actually set up to have a better finish than this. I mean, obviously I needed Cantlay to win on Sunday, which is big, huge, but, English and Fitzpatrick doing nothing on Sunday limited the upside. But, if I got off Casey to either, a Champ or something like that, definitely could add some major potential. We definitely nailed the values talking about them last week with Munoz, Smith, Champ. I regret not getting more exposure to Justin Thomas or Rahm in my top lineups this week. I definitely fell into the Morikawa trap too. It just felt like he was too cheap.
I thought he'd be low owned coming off of a really less than stellar performance in the previous 2 weeks. Maybe we'll get that at the Masters. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. But anyways, it's a solid week. Definitely, obviously, getting exposure to Cantlay, this really paid off, and solid enough in the other parts. Definitely Bubba, I mean, too, I thought was a good play. Definitely paying off again. He's playing so well tee to green. So
really is.
He's just went a little
really
bit
interesting, actually, too, coming up for the Masters as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think Jeff, that'll do it for last week. It was again a pretty good week. I liked the course. I didn't mind a 24 under or winner or whatever we got. It's it was good golf by the best in the world, and I think we'll probably get something very, very similar this week as we transition into. But before we do, I want to tell you about our Monday Night Football giveaway. Here's what you got to do. Just check out the pinned tweet on Awesemo at our Twitter handle at Awesemo_comms. Enter the Monday Night giveaway to win a year's worth of Awesemo Plus NFL. So what you're going to do is just follow the instructions on the graphic and predict whether Nick Foles or Jared Goff will have more passing yards. One random winner will be selected among the correct guesses. Be sure to check out our giveaway on the Awesemo_com Instagram handle as well to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Good luck. And Jeff, I like the game. It should be a fun game tonight. Good defenses, but I've got Jared Goff. Nick Foles just does not throw the ball that well, or throw the ball that much. So I got Jared Goff winning that one.
You're going to take Goff? I'm always going to take Nick Foles. So
just in everything, you're just going to take Nick Foles, right?
Going to take Nick Foles. Yeah, it should be an interesting game. I mean, neither team obviously throws the ball a ton, but I mean, look, the Bears are also, if you go by game script, the Bears could be throwing a little bit more. Rams run the ball, I think, more than any team in the league right now. So, but I think that prop is actually going to be really close. So you probably have a sweat either way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's head in and talk a bit about Bermuda and Port Royal Golf Club. It's a par 71, 6,900 yards. We saw Brendan Todd, of course, like I said, last year win it at -24. He won over Harry Higgs. Par 71, 6,900 yards, 3 par 5s, all very reachable. In fact, the 8th hole, I think, is one of the easiest holes on the PGA Tour last year. Had like 240 birdies versus 90 pars and had 25 eagles. So definitely a scoring hole there. 4 par 3s that all measure roughly around 200 yards, 1 under, and then 11 par 4s with 5 or 6 of them under 400 yards, but at the same token, none really drivable. So that's why I think, Jeff, you can see somebody like Brendan Todd being able to compete, because even if you can drive at 350, somebody that's hitting, let's just say, has a 40-yard approach shot versus Brendan Todd with a 100-yard approach shot, most of the time, I think they're probably getting it relatively close to each other, especially with how good Todd is with his wedges. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this Trent Jones Senior Design Seaside course, a little bit about the stats that we got from last year, I should say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously we didn't have strokes gain stats, so there's not like the same amount to go on or anything. But Brendan Todd, he was pretty much. He still struck the ball really well. It wasn't just like he got super hot with his putter. I think he was 3rd in putts gained for greens and regulation. Yep. He's sitting around 10th in greens and regulation too. He hit a lot of fairways. Was 51st in driving distance. Again, like you mentioned, I mean, the par 5s here were the scoring holes. And the other thing just to mention about the course in general, it's a seaside course, right? So, when you're playing along the ocean, which I think 6 holes do, like bashing driver just isn't really going to be that big of an option. So, like Jason said, I just don't see we don't actually have that many big power hitters because it's a weakened field anyways, but that's something else to consider. But I just don't think there's going to be that many opportunities to do it. So we saw a lot of, like I said, pretty high green and regulation percentage, a little bit higher than the average tour. Looks like driving accuracy was actually fairly tough to hit. The fairways were, it's a little bit lower than the tour average, but at the same time, I don't know. I'm not sure who that actually favors with a harder to hit fairways, just because, the wind plays a factor as well. You're on a seaside course. I don't think players are necessarily out here bombing it, and that's what led to low accuracy numbers. It's probably just a case of, maybe they're harder to hit, and, maybe the wind played a bit of a factor. So all things considered, doesn't really look like it profiles as anything more than just a second shot course where, I don't think it's I don't want to say it doesn't matter what you do off the tee, but as long as you're solid off the tee, you'll probably be fine here.
Yeah, I'm with you there for sure. I mean, when we see 54% of the fairways hit, which is the fourth hardest on tour out of 40-something courses last year, typically then when you see the winning score still at -24, -21 for second place, -18 for a top five, you know that the rough length is obviously not going to matter. You know, like you said, we're going to hit about 66% of the greens. I will say, I look, Brendan Todd hit about 71% of his fairways last year here. So
yeah,
certainly can be an advantage. There were other golfers out there like David Hearn and Ryan Armour who, you know, they really focus on their driving accuracy. But then you also had golfers like Aaron Wise and Wes Roach who only have a power game. So I really think there is not one player that you should be focusing on this week. I think it's pretty wide open.
I think the best comparison from that accuracy profile is probably Wahiley and the Sony Open. Really skinny fairways, not good driving accuracy numbers. Everyone still blitzes it anyways because the rough just doesn't seem to matter much there. So probably the best comparison just in terms of from what's going on off the tee.
Yep, I think it's a great point. And as you just mentioned in our chat, salaries just dropped. So we'll definitely be talking about that here in a little bit. But first, before we go into salaries, or I guess I can mention that this guy is number 2 on the board, and yet again, it is Zalatoris season on the PGA Tour. He got a top 5 in his last start. That's how he's getting the start here in Bermuda. But now all he needs is a made cut. So I had my calculations pretty much right, but it ended up being a 5-way or a 4-way tie for that tie for 5th. So that's why he didn't actually gain the special temporary membership yet. Now all he needs is something like 20 points, which is a made cut. So if you were a betting man, how much money would you bet saying that he makes the cut this week and say that he gets a special temporary membership? Or is this a place for him to miss the cut?
I don't think it's a place for him to miss the cut. I just think the field is too weak, right? I mean, I guess you could make the case that, you know, it's a little bit of a putting contest and, you know, maybe his ball striking isn't going to be as huge a deal here as it would be like some other course. But like at the same time, I just feel like he's a class above in that regards so much in this field that with the weaker back half of this field, be pretty shocking to see him miss the cut here, like, to be honest. So,
yeah,
I think he'll get it done here. Maybe we'll even see him make like a little run at the win on the weekend if he just get through the cut, because all the pressure will be off at that point. He'll have achieved his goal, obviously, which is to get that full-time status. So lots of things could be happening with Will Zalatoris. Yeah, and I think that's actually maybe a strong point. You see, if he makes the cut and, you know, he's not that high up, make sure you remember him for Showdown, because I'm sure most people will be on him for Showdown, but that could be a real confidence boost just knowing he got that done. So
no, he's a real quality player. We just saw him get a top 10 at a U.S. Open and a couple more top 10s after that on the PGA Tour. I think this guy's a stud. He's definitely going to be here. And we're approaching unprecedented territory. That this guy though doesn't even have his card. Top almost 50 in the world. He's now the odds favorite on DraftKings. I see him at 11.5 to 1. Is this guy really that much better than, say, a Doc Redman who got it done a very similar way, did the special temporary membership, who in this field, he's 30 to 1. Do we really want to be betting Zalatoris at 11.5 when we have Doc Redman at 30 to 1?
I mean, I can't bet Zalatoris at all. You know, I'll talk about him purely from a DK perspective, but like just from a betting perspective, I mean, and look, I don't like to say, oh, he hasn't got it done. He's only got one win on the Korn Ferry Tour. It's hard to win. It's hard to close out events, even for top players. So I don't think you necessarily hold that against him. But yeah, on the PGA, I mean, to bet a 10 to 1 winner, man, you got to be really confident in a guy. I mean, coming in for form and everything like that. And for a young player, still not like super sharp with his putter at times and around the green, it's just not enough there. I mean, this is a tour. This is a course that's going to bring in so many styles of play and just, you know, cater to veteran players who get hot with their putter. Like we saw Hudson Swafford do. It's just not the type of event I want to be targeting a 10 to 1 guy with Zalatoris. So,
yeah. So that's the next thing I think is a great point to bring up about, similarly to Corrales, which you just brought up the winner there to this one. With the field being so weak, you're going to get more variability. You know, you look and you see 11,100 for Brendan Todd, and you're like, what week is this? What am I doing? So I think you have to take that with a grain, you know, of salt, and understand that this is just the field that we're in. Some people like this. Some people like the variability. Some people will say, hey, you know what? I'll take a Brendan Todd 11,100 and pair him up with Kelly Craft at 6,600, and that's how I'm going to get my edge. Totally understand. Other people, I can tell you that when they open up the app and they see Todd at 11-1, they're going to be like, okay, I'll see you next week. Understand that element as well. Me, I love it. I like digging in. And some of the dig ins that I found at first, as we go over our first clicks here, and a name that I want to bring up that was absolutely destroying the European Tour when the European Tour came back. And seems like this is kind of a similar field, honestly. I mean, there were some good players in those fields. And there are a couple of good players here, not as many, but talk about Rasmus Højgaard. He is under the commissioner's exemption foreign player list that he's playing on this week, which is definitely a new exemption for these type of tournaments. I think Lucas Beauregard maybe got the other one because he's in this field as well. But regardless, Rasmus Højgaard, the teenager from Denmark, I believe, 45-1 this week. I clicked it because it's a similar field to what he's been mopping up over on the European Tour.
Yeah. Again, like the only argument I can make here is, again, we're talking about a young player coming over. Is this going to be like his first PGA start? Or did he make? No, he played the U.S. Open.
U.S. Open. Missed it, but had a terrible day one.
Yeah. So with these young European players, I absolutely, and look, I almost missed out on Matthias Schwab at the Barracuda for this reason, but I just don't like to bet them when they first come over. It just feels like there's a bit of a switch, and a lot of them just don't adjust well right off the bat. So at the same time, this is a ridiculously weak field. Like, this is
insanely weak.
This isn't a regular PGA Tour event, right? So I think this is fine. I think I think the odds on Højgaard are actually pretty good. I was actually thinking he might be a little bit lower than that. So for me, it comes down to between him and Justin Sue in that range for betting. You can definitely do both. I don't even think that's a bad way to start a card. I'm going to lean Justin Sue.
Yes.
Probably won't have a piece of Højgaard for betting. Definitely might have a piece of him for DFS. But both of those guys, this is a fantastic spot for both of them. I know you probably want to talk about Justin Sue too, but I mean, he's coming off a great event, obviously. Great ball strike number in his last start. What is his status for the exemption? Does he need like a top 5 here or something?
No, okay. So he's working off of it got reset, right? So he came top 21 at the Barracuda, but that actually counted for last year. So he's only working off of a T14 and a T8. So he still needs a couple of more. I think, of course, a T3 or better would get it. I don't think a T5 does it, though. I'm pretty sure a T5 would give him maybe one more, and he would need it. So he's getting close. Okay. But if we look at his Corrales stuff, he had a tough weekend, 71-73. But what I saw at Shriners was, like you said, the ball striking was the first time that I had seen Sue really. Of course, we don't have strokes gained numbers from Corrales, but I know he got it done with the putter there. I know his ball striking wasn't great. So now it's good to see him match up with the ball striking. I know he's a good putter. Seems like at 8,700 on DraftKings and at 44-1, he just went down. He was 45-1. I really like this kid. I think this might be, in these type of fields, one of the last times we get him at this price. I think that he's going to end up getting on the PGA Tour and becoming a pretty good player. I don't think he's going to win a big event like we saw Morikawa, Wolf, and Hovland already do. But I think he's going to fit in somewhere near those guys eventually.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, like, Morikawa's first win came at the Barracuda, which is basically the equivalent of this event, right? So, very, very possible. And I think you're right. I think if he puts up one more big result, you're not going to get him at this price. So I'd probably rather take a shot with him over Højgaard. But again, I understand both those names. I'll just go through a couple other guys that stick out. And one thing we haven't mentioned either, the weather does look like it's going to get a little bit nuts. Not like crazy, but we're talking like 20-mile-per-hour winds on the weekend. That always can throw a wrench into things and just make things a bit more of a variable event. We already have like a crazy field. So I kind of like Norlander at 45-1 for similar reasons like that. He's just a good grinder, good putter when he's on, good approaches. I like Wes Bryant for this course. This is just profiles as a massive Wes Bryant course, very similar to RBC Heritage in a lot of regards. Yeah,
people miss the fairway all the time, so he's missing it to begin with. So
yeah, exactly. And I mean, he's actually improved in that area. So again, I'm talking guys further down in the odds. I even got a 90-1 this morning on Wes Bryant. That was one of my first clicks. And then
that's a great number.
Further down, I think two guys have popped out for me in the longer odds. Kelly Craft, who good at Corrales, coming back from injury. His ball striking's starting to get a little more consistent. He always competes in these kind of events.
Yep.
You go through his record. I mean, second place at the Barbasol last year. He's got 2 top 5s in Corrales. And then Rob Oppenheim was another just kind of veteran guy that stuck out 100 to 1. His ball striking's been good. Was in contention at the Wyndham, another low scoring event. I like those odds on him. He's 24th here last year too. I think that's 100 to 1 on him in this field. I think you're getting at least a little bit of value there. So
you just said a name of a tournament. But I'm going to tell you about the name of a guy, and it being the same thing, and a guy that you and I have talked about. He came in, let's see, I got to count, came in the top at least 15 at the Shriners, and it's Wyndham Clark. Now, we know that he gets it done with his putter and his off the tee game. We totally know that, and we know that we're going to need irons here. We lost, almost like 3.2 at the Shriners. At 90 to 1, is the irons just that poor where we can't click it? Or in this field, with maybe a little bit of an uptick, certainly an ability to use his driver, if the putter gets hot, it seems like 90 to 1 is pretty good value for Clark in this field.
Yeah, no, if you can get 90 to 1 and Wyndham Clark, I definitely like that. Player I talked about a couple weeks ago at the Shriners came through he was in contention, but he still came through for like a top 20 at like plus 900. But yeah, I think 90 to 1 in this field for Wyndham Clark, if you can get that. Talking about a guy who can light it up with the putter. His off the tee game isn't going to be as big a factor here, but his approaches have been trending good. Like he's been inconsistent, but he goes on a couple whole stretches where he's just firing, and then it's like the only thing I worry about him here is if he can just stay away from the bogey streaks that he kind of goes on, because you really can't make many bogeys here. I think Todd made like 1 last year, so it's just a low scoring event, kind of like last week where I think Cantlay ended up with like 1 or 2 bogeys on the week. So that's the only thing that worries me about Clark. But I think at 90 to 1. That's fine in this field. Like that's a really good number.
Yep, totally agree. So let's go into a little bit of the DFS preview now that we've gone through our first clicks. Normally we give a couple of values out, but the odds are a little bit behind it the way where I look. They're not, the top 20 values are not on the board yet. So let's talk a little bit about DraftKings. We do have salaries. We won't have to guess like we did last week, Jeff, and kind of make up our own prices. Brendan Todd, 11-1. I don't think it's a surprise to see him come in above Zalatoris, having the course history, even though their odds might be flipped. We still get 5 guys above 10,000 with the way they're putting it out. Varner, Redmond, Grillo, all kind of playing pretty well. And I would consider the class of this field actually all pretty good options up there. But are their prices all being above 10,000, Jeff, going to scare you away where you're just going to go down to, say, Justin Sue, Aaron Wise to start your lineup this week?
Obviously these just dropped. So, I mean, we're just digesting them. But like right now, I mean, I'm kind of liking the price on Grillo and Redmond. I think it's going to keep them, from being uber chalk.
30% owned. Yes, exactly.
I think you'll see guys like Sue. Unfortunately, you might see Justin Sue be one of the more chalky players of the week. You might see guys like, even the Norlander play I threw out, unfortunately, end up as pretty heavy chalk and going down, guys like Patrick Rogers. So I think that, with people wanting to get, I don't want to say a free square like Zalatoris or maybe Varner, but they'll probably feel like free squares that, one of Grillo and Redmond splitting ownership a little bit too. Yep. You might even just start with those two. I don't know. That's my first instinct. I think if I was leaning between those two, I might even lean Grillo. Again, the wind's going to be a little bit more of a factor this week. Grillo's just such a consistent ball striker in those conditions. I'm liking him over 10K just from the first look here. I think that's going to be a place where if you're not, going for like a Brendan Todd starting lineup or something like that, then that's probably where I'd go.
Yeah, Grillo, 100 points at the Shriners, but came in a tie for 34th. But it looks like that included maybe a quad or at least a triple.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it seems right about Grillo there. I will say, I think that Harold Varner, he's been really, really close in years past. We know he's got the Australian Pga Championship win, so he's got a big international win. I just think with this guy's game, the win is inevitable. I really think that the PGA Tour win will come for him. I do think it's probably going to be at an event like this, though. I don't think it's going to be, at least for his first one. He's even competed in majors, so I think this guy's real close. I definitely like him. And we know Doc Redmond. I mean, this guy is one of the best young players in the game. Shot both rounds in the 60s at Shriners, but missed the cut. So it just really low-scoring event, which maybe makes me a little nervous. Then we go down the price a little bit, and we get some of those core veterans. Henrik Stenson is again in this field. He's going to the seaside courses. But we thought we had a free square with him at the Sanders and Punta Cana, and I'll tell you what, he's just not putting up the birdies. I mean, he only had 4 birdies in the 2 rounds at Sanderson and only 16 at Corrales. Is he viable even at 9,300 this week? I mean, he would feel safe, but I don't know that Henrik Stenson's game is anywhere near where it needs to be.
I almost feel like a fish saying it in this field, but like I really don't think he's a play. I would really rather go again
Ventura
with just with guys that have been playing more in the fall and playing well in the fall. Yep. I brought up Norlander, the 2 Henrik Swedes. I can't believe I'm taking Norlander over Stenson in this spot, but like that's probably where I would go, or go down to like Malnati even at 9K. I mean, just lighting it up with the putter and actually playing well with his approach shots. Like you said, he's making birdies. He's playing well with the scoring clubs. Henrik Stenson is not playing well with the scoring clubs right now. So could it switch on a dime? Absolutely. Absolutely it could. Stenson could come in here and make me look like an idiot next week. But I just feel like we see this every year in the fall swing, and guys get hot. They come against weaker fields. They get confident. I would just play the people who have played a lot. That's the first thing I'll say. And played well with and made a lot of birdies in the other fall series events. It sounds simple, but sometimes a simple thing is just the way to go. That's the approach I'm taking with Stenson this week. I don't want to say I've completely written him off, but I'm probably going to fade him.
Peter Piping Putter Malnati, Piping Hot, I guess I should have put in there as well. 9,000 on the salary chart this week. I mean, this guy, he has rode it to, probably over $1 million in earnings in his last 2 starts with a T5, a second place at Sanderson, a T5 at Shriners.
Already got his card for the next year.
He's already got his card, and he's got to play under the top 10 category right now, and he's already got a card for next year, pretty much locked up. So Peter Malnati, Seaside Course, keeping T41 at Corrales. Is he in your player pool this week at 9,000, or do you think he will be? I should say, especially with the high 8s, which we'll get to in a second, which I feel is pretty low.
Yeah, look, a lot of this is going to come down to ownership projections. Look, you can get, again, like I said, you can get ownership projections on Awesemo.com. It's one of the great features of it. It really helps you later in the week when things are coming in and stuff like that. So Malnati's going to be an ownership play. If he's not projecting as anything near chalk or anything, I'll probably get on him. But he's a little bit chalky, it'll be between him and Norlander. If I'm getting like half the ownership on Norlander, I am on Malnati. I'll probably go to Norlander. If it's equal, I'll probably might go a little bit overweight in Malnati. So that's kind of where I'm looking. I like both those plays. You do have Hogarth and Sue behind them too, but you can really, of those four guys I just mentioned, you can play 2 of them. So I think that's probably what I'll be looking. Again, I just mentioned guys playing well, playing a lot. I like all 4 of those guys for that reason. Maybe Hogarth being last on the list just because, again, coming over from Europe, not a pedigree thing or anything, but I think all 4 of those guys interesting. It's just going to be a later week in the call for me.
So a guy that is certainly popular amongst the crowd of DFS players, and of good reason to be, because he's got all the talent in the world, but his variability is as high as it's ever been. But at 8,600, with a top 10 here last year, Aaron Wise has at least shown a couple of times. We had an 8th at the Barracuda, and maybe that was 3 months ago. But how about the T17 at Sanderson Farms a couple of weeks ago? Seems like he's close, and this might not be a bad event for to cash in at Aaron Wise at 8,600.
I think I'm okay letting Aaron Wise beat me this week. I've gotten to that point with Aaron. I've finally gotten to the point where I'm okay.
It's good. It's good because it's tough to kick habits sometimes.
Yeah, it is. And the Shriners was kind of like I wanted to see him at least make the cut at the Shriners after he had that good Sanderson, because I did use him a bit. I didn't go nuts, but I used him, and it's the same story, man. Like he started off okay, like 4 under, and then it's like 73. It's just like, what do you do? And that's at a course where he's played well at every year. So if he's not making the cut at the Shriners for me, I'm not paying up for him at the next tournament. I'm just not doing that. And I know this is like, we don't have many options to work with here, but like I'll go down and take a shot with like Maverick McNeely that gets hot with his putter, then go Aaron Wise this week. I'm just, I can't do it anymore.
Your Aaron Wise lately has been my Luke List lately. I chased that Corrales top 10. I loved it. And
at least Luke List makes cuts. At least he makes cuts.
Well, not the last 2, and that's kind of the problem. And I guess that's where focusing is this just a product of the putter caught up to him in the last two events, which were more scoring events, and this is a good spot to bounce back? Or are we maybe just regressing in form a little bit right now?
Yeah, it might be a little bit of combo of both, right? I mean, definitely don't like him coming in off two missed cuts. At the same time, we know Luke List is like generally can just, I don't want to say just turn it on, but when he is on, I mean, his ball striking can easily lead the field this week. So power's not going to be a huge thing for him, but I mean, he's played well at like RBC Heritage before too. I mean, he played well at Corrales. I again, you're asking me in this range, I would, and maybe this is my personal bias because I just can't do Aaron Wise. I would rather take a shot with Luke List, 100% here. I think he's shown more at events like this. I think he's, even with the two missed cuts, we see this from List sometimes where he can just dip with his putter or the ball striking just dips a little bit, but he can bounce back. And I feel more comfortable rostering Luke List here than Aaron Wise, who it feels like even if Aaron Wise plays well, he's going to find a way to get you like T17 max. Whereas if List makes the cut and starts playing well, I think he could really get in there and win you a GPP this week. So I'm interested in List. I'm not interested in Wise. That's my early take anyways. Hopefully I don't change because I really don't want to play Aaron Wise this week. So
yeah, and it could be a spot where you might even be able to leverage that in the betting markets if you end up.
Yeah, true. Yeah, absolutely.
So Maverick McNeely, you mentioned if you're playing him for his putting, no doubt about it. And he does have a ton of upside because of that. He is one of the best putters when he gets hot on tour, but the rest of his game is going poorly. But I'll tell you, not for his significant other, Danielle Kang. Maybe he can take some motivation from her because she's playing some great golf. I don't know if she ended up closing it out, but I know she had another chance to win on the LPGA.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Again this week. So yeah, she's just been crushing it. I'll look that up quickly. So why don't you tell me your top play under 8K this week as we kind of mark down this field. We've got like Tom Lewis, who's obviously a GPP focus. Yeah, Kang came in second last week again. She's at the Drive On Championship. She's absolutely scorching hot right now. So maybe that goes to Maverick McNeely. But below 8K, did anybody catch your mind upon your first scrolling? I know that's what it dropped when our show was already on, so we only had a chance to really scroll.
It's good though. You get our initial reactions. I kind of like it.
Wes Bryan, I think maybe you mentioned 78.
Yeah, no, absolutely. From a DFS perspective, and like I said, I did get a good betting number on Wes Bryan. 7,800 though, I like it. It just sets up so well for him. The approach game is clicking. He was really good around the greens and on the greens at Sanderson. I think he gained like 5 strokes around and putting combined, which you just love to see with Wes Bryan, especially at a course like Bermuda coming up. It's short. What he does off the tee not going to be a huge difference. And then I don't know if I mentioned, but like I did bet Tom Lewis at 66-1. He's 60. I think he's 61st in the world. He can come here and blitz this field. He can absolutely do that. A really solid young player. I like that. Maybe more for the betting perspective. I don't think you'll need to go crazy on Tom Lewis to be over the field this week at least. But did make the cut in his last time out. But he's a streaky player who, again, I just feel like in this field, very discounted at 66-1. He's got like 4 professional wins. They've all kind of come. He's actually won in Portugal, kind of in coastal courses before too. So something to think about. But that's definitely the player that sticks out the most there in the mid range. You mentioned Wyndham Clark. I'm definitely behind that. I think just as a talent, he sticks out. And I don't know. I mean, Russell Knox is really interesting. He played so well at the Safeway, and then he's very much Aaron Wise, like in the 7K range right now, Russell Knox. He just hasn't burned me as much because I haven't really been playing him. So I don't know if I'll let Russell Knox burn me, but it's pretty tempting at 7,600 right there.
Somebody at 7,200 that if you had told me maybe 9 months ago that he'd be 7,200 at the Bermuda Championship, I would have told you it's been a pretty big fall for this Twitter personality, and it's Max Homa. What is going on? I mean, the guy only scored 8 points at the U.S. Open. Yeah, granted, is not much, but 7,200 it does feel cheap, but the form is way off there. Are you interested at all this week?
I did look at Max Homa. He's like 100-1 too. I mean, it is tempting. He is from a quality perspective, probably, we should be talking about him in the same vein as Aaron Wise, like up there in that range, right? I think if he was playing with any decent form, that's where he'd be coming in. But like, I mean, he can't even, like, even when he made a cut,
it's real bad. He can't score at all.
It's real bad. And I think that's the biggest problem with me. Not only does he have to turn around his ball striking, like he's got to start sinking putts, and he sometimes doesn't even do that when he's playing well. So I don't think I can do it. It is tempting because you look at this range, it's like, wow, like he's going up against guys like Garnett and McCumber, although McCumber's actually been hitting it well. But this is unfortunately the type of event where guys like Troy Merritt and Garnett, they come to life, and easier to play courses. They dominate with their irons and putters, and I just don't think. I think this is more of just I'm trying to get my game together event for Max Homa than he's even thinking about the win this week. That's just the way I feel from looking at the stats and his paper. I have no idea what's going on in his mind, obviously, but that's how I'm viewing him. It's tempting, but I don't think I'm going to be able to click that.
We've got in the last 4 events here for this guy. We've got cut T14, cut T23, and I'm talking about Doug Ghim, who, when he makes the weekend, it seems like he's scoring. It seems like he's getting into the top 25 right now. But when he's not, he's missing the cut. There's no in between with him right now. Any interest in Doug Ghim this week? And then we can end it with your one quick click from guys below 7K.
Yeah, Doug Ghim is interesting. I haven't had a chance to look into his stats yet, but definitely a guy, I kind of wrote down even just as a note, like looking to Doug Ghim. Decent young player. I think he'll be more of maybe a DraftKings, maybe a top 20 bet. We'll see what odds or something. I'll definitely be considering him in this range, though. I think, from, again, a talent perspective, he sticks out a little bit. Not really super sold. I do like Oppenheim in this range. I actually really kind of do like that play. So he would probably be my top play there, but I'll look into Ghim, probably look into Cameron Percy a little bit, who's been really consistent too, should set up well for, again, just like more of a veterans course. So that's kind of where I'm looking at there. I definitely have Ghim on the radar, but not necessarily my top play going into the week.
All right, last one here. You get to pick. This is the first time we get to say this, so of course I get to talk about it because it's been a while since this guy's been in a PGA Tour field, and his brother is in the field. So, the Schneider Jan Bros. Who do you got this week to beat the other? Do you think that Ali having his brother in the field gives him a little of that mojo? I mean, here's a guy that had a top 5 in a major as an amateur. Or do you think Luke in his, first or second professional start beats his brother?
Apparently Luke Schneider-Jan shot like a 59 a few weeks ago, like at a mini tour event or something.
Explain.
I think I read that correctly. So I'm going Ollie here, though, man. You got to go with Big Brother. I mean, I'm obviously an Ollie stan if you follow me on Twitter.
Yeah.
I did bet him at 150 to 1. It was mainly for the each way, trust me. Ollie's interesting, dude. He can I think he actually leads the Corn Ferry Tour in birdies made. Just something to think about. He can absolutely.
It's always been his MO. He just can't avoid the big numbers.
He just can't avoid bogeys in general. It's not even the big numbers. It's just like the bogeys. I mean. He goes on bogey streaks just as often as he goes on birdie streaks, but he will absolutely light up the score sheet, which at 6,200 actually really puts him in play. I thought he might be like 6,700. I almost guarantee I'll put him in, but and I actually, and I'm not being facetious. I actually think he is a really good play at that price because he's very Jordan Spieth-esque. He will just put up a ton of birdies, might finish like T30, but finish top 10 scoring this week. Would not shock me in the least.
Really I'd love to see him get a paycheck. Yeah, I would absolutely love to just see him get a paycheck at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to see him back on the PGA Tour. I love hatless Ollie, man. He's the only golfer that won't wear a hat out there, and gotta love everybody with that personality. So, all right, that's gonna do it for the PGA DFS first look show for the Bermuda Championship. Of course, check out our showdown projections. They are free, of course, on Instagram for tonight's Monday Night Football game, and of course. Don't forget, if you're not an Awesemo Plus member, come and join the newest Millionaire Maker crowd. We got some winners last night. Use promo code PUMPKIN, $10.31 upon checkout, and that's what you're going to get the weekly Platinum Plus Pass for. So that was my second 3 Ps in a row. I tried the Peter Putter Piping Malnati and got that one in there. So that's a good way to end it. So until next week, we've got the Houston Championship or Open. I think it's the Vivint now. And then it's the Masters, Jeff. So tell me real quickly, who is going to win? Is Justin Sue going to win this golf tournament?
Who is going to win? I think it's going to be a crazy little bit of a crazy event just because of the win. I think you're going to get a veteran. I think you're going to see someone like, I threw out Oppenheim. That's obviously my guy because I bet him already. But I think you're going to see a guy like that win again. Very Hudson Swafford-esque. It just always seems to happen at these events. So I'm gonna stick with that trend and just say we're gonna get some random 100-to-1 winner.
Well, that is a good one to go out on. So Jeff, thanks, and thanks everybody for joining. And we of course will see you next week, 3:00 for the Houston Open. Thanks everybody.